Welcome back to the Lekker Rugby Pod. Andre Pretorius and I are on a quest to go through each position of the potential Springbok field. It's a difficult one because, injuries intervene. Style and shape of the Springbok play in 2026, 2027 is unknown, but we're doing the best we can with what we have. And it's been a hell of a ride, actually. A lot of you guys have reached out and had your own debates, your own discussion. We welcome that. We are not in any way impervious, infallible, whatever. Andre, how do you feel about talking about the big guys, the ultimates, the props of the team this week?
Hi, Harry. Yeah, it's been quite a ride, like you said, and I'm actually looking forward to this one because when I was playing, these were the guys that I got very close with. I needed them, and the more I watch the clips and the more I look at the work these fellas do, it's just I get so much more respect for what they actually do. Getting up from a scrum, trying to determine which side is left and which side is right. You've just had no oxygen for a couple of seconds. And then you have to still remember the detail of the defense system or the attack system for that matter. So I've always said it. I've got the utmost respect for these boys. And if I get a second chance to play again, I definitely won't come back as a prop.
So we are doing a familiar pattern, Andre. We are taking each position, and to the best of our ability, we are identifying the incumbent Springbok, the one who's got the jersey. Then we're talking about the guys who are chasing it. When we talk about props, this is kind of different because most props don't go 80 anymore. A lot of them come off at a predetermined almost 45 minutes. So you're looking at a group of props. And also, obviously, tighthead props and loosehead props often get misnamed. Even the Super Rugby Pacific Team of the Year this year and Super Rugby actually got them the wrong way around. Alan Alatoa and Angus Bell were switched. Eddie Jones in his autobiographies famously called Van Smalherbe loosehead. Looseheads and tightheads, obviously on a club level, if you went to False Bay Rugby Club, you could switch. Swing props like Tank Tatoy still exist. Trevor Nyakani could do it. But in fact, it's been specialized. What we've done is we've broken down each position into the most important criteria, not the only criteria, but the ones that sort of get you picked or not picked, the ones that get you 50 caps versus 75 versus 10 caps. 4 categories, and then we assign percentages for those. They're weighted. So there's the most important, then the second, the third, the fourth. We look at the challengers, and then we try to come up with a dark horse. Actually, in the series so far, a lot of those dark horses have been picked in the Springbok squad. Admittedly, Rassi's picked about 100 people, but still. So, Andre, a lot of this comes down to your clips. Give us a little taste on what you're doing to gather these amazing clips and how long this has taken you. And I apologize again for putting you into the harder work part of the pod.
No, not at all. It's been a lot of fun, and I've been able to learn so much about these players. And obviously, from a coaching point of view, looking at certain fundamentals that these guys get right more often than not. So for every player, it's probably about 5 games minimum where you try and get their clips. Now, the nice thing with the forwards is that a lot of them only play a certain amount starting and then come off the bench. So the clips are cut in half pretty much for some positions. So, and then you'll take, depending on what your categories are, you'll put them into a category and then you'll put them into a playlist where you can go and view it like we do on the pod. Yeah. So no, it hasn't been a problem at all. It's been quite fun, actually.
I'm doing a graphic novel on each position, which is hopefully going to come out in the next year. And the props are one of my favorite word pictures of designing who these guys really are. In the loosehead, I've likened to a monk. A lot of them are very quiet guys. And I just imagine a monk running along a rocky cliff, with scars on his back, and he gets to a practice field and it's a bunch of other monks that are playing rugby. Or an English mastiff is the tighthead, slobbering, a little bit of a snorer, not the one you want to be paired up with on the tour, but difficult to deal with. And in both cases, they might have a lot of Neanderthal blood in them, because there's about 2% left in Northern European bloodlines. And what I find is these props are often incredibly smart. And often they're billed on the team sheet as, the dumb guys, the beef, but actually they tend to be great businessmen, end up being chairmen of boards. They're overrepresented in the administration of rugby. Really smart guys. And I think, Andre, it's because the scrum is a very technical place. And even the things that don't do in the scrum, whether it's lifting or the maul or their ability to leverage their body, it's a thinking man's game. It's you don't just put a big beefy guy in there and hope he survives. There's plenty of props who are huge that get monstered by the smaller guy who has better angles. The scrum is a lonely place. It's one of those places in rugby where for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds, there's no respite, there's no escape. You are going to be examined. Yes, there's people behind you that influence you. Yes, the bind with your hooker is important. Yes, we get into all that, collarbones and shear and breakfoots, but you're kind of lonely as well if you're a tight head. You've got two men coming for you, trying to separate you, trying to make you squeal. And the kilojoules that are used up in a scrum that goes on for a while, where you're trying to milk a penalty, is insane. So what we know is that the number of scrums have gone down precipitously over the last 20, 35 years, as lineouts, but scrums particularly. But in a weird way, they matter even more because they're pinged more often as a percentage. So now if you get scrummed, you're going to be facing a penalty. You might even be facing a card. And that all leads me to this one thing, which is even if you only have 5 scrums, 6 scrums, 7 scrums in a game, you cannot afford to put someone on the field at the prop position who will lose you scrums, who has a scrum frailty. So you might be the best carrier in the world, you might be an amazing guy in the tackle zone, but you have to nail your core duties at the scrum, as well as the lift and the line out and the maul. Um, a clothing thought about props is we all start out in different positions. If you trace the history of our lives and just kind of put, the list, I start out 15, 10, 13, 12, 7, 8. I find that if you play rugby a very long time into your 40s and you're at a club, we all end up as props. We all end up shaped as props. It's unavoidable. So these are the great guys in the team. So Andre, we're going to dive right in because we've got a lot of guys to cover. Just a little bit of a sneak peek of the categories we have is scrum, we have tackle, the contact zone, because teams try to isolate props and use them as weaknesses in the defensive line, then if you can be a prop and not be a weakness in the defensive line, you've actually given your team a really big boost because most backs are trying to find the prop in the defensive line because they can step them. The next category, so it's 40%, 30%, 20%, 10. 40% scrum, 30% tackle contact zone, defensive line, 20% mauling, maul killing, maul pushing, and the lifting in the line out, as well as the restart sometimes. And then the final category, which is a bonus, 10% on the carry, because we don't expect crops to carry 15 times. But if they carry 5 times, we want them to get over the gain line. So to shoot off, I think we're going to start at number 3. Talk to me about tight head props and what you're looking for about these guys, and then we'll kind of go down the list and go through the clips.
Harry, as like you just said, with the scrums, sometimes you don't even have a lot of scrums, but those scrums are so important, and you concede 1 or 2 penalties, you're defending mauls. And it's unfair to expect these guys to be able to be very effective in their maul stopping when they're scrumming to defend those areas. So
Exactly.
it's such a compound effect. So within that, you want your prop to be really anchoring and sometimes not just dominating. And I think that's where South Africa's gone to the next level. We expect our scrum to dominate, not just to survive or not just to not concede penalties. I think we're in a situation where we can expect penalties when we do get scrums on both teams' balls. So that's the one thing. It's understanding your role and knowing where you fit in with that. I also think that you say that they don't carry, and that is true, but you need that prop to also have the skills when he does get into that position. Some of the props are very, very agile, very mobile, move well, but you do get sometimes when the ground skill lacks sometimes because they're not that used to carrying. When they do get, then they can close that up and they can go low and they can get down. But once they get onto the ground, it kind of feels like it's a like a baby giraffe running for the first time. What I do with this, do I put it out or do I? So there is that where it's only 10% of our weighting, but I think with the way that South Africa play, the props do tend to get into position to carry quite a lot. And like guys like Ox and Steenekamp and those boys, they put themselves into position. They look to go and get the ball. So that's the role again within the South African side. The role of those positions the horizons have been broadened by the way that we play, and also by what Russie and them expect of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these props, when they do carry, they get the settler carry. So you're in phase 3 or 4, things have not really gone right in phase 2 or 3, maybe. And you need someone to just be a bulwark. That's why I use the English Mastiff as an example. Just a big dog who can go in there and say, I might not get 2 or 3 meters on this carry, but I'm also not going to get -2. And we're going to be able to settle down and then give our decision makers time to decide, are we kicking, are we boxing, are we going again?